In a world of ninjas, death can come from the shadows, but in the light, we find our hero Joe, played by Kendra Suda's Tatsu of Way of the House Husband, enjoying his married life out in the sticks of America. However, one day, Joe's former co-workers, jealous that he isn't single anymore, come to take his waifu and his laifu. But thanks to the power of resurrection jutsu, Joe comes back to life and seeks revenge on his former comrades who took his waifu from him. But he won't be doing it alone. The "I'm retiring soon, just keep your head down" and beloved Sergeant Powell joins him as they unravel a plot by Mark Zuckerberg to take over the world with the metaverse and ninjas. It's an action flick filled with explosions, katanas, ghosting animations, and yes, lots and lots of ninjas. The much anticipated Ninja Kamui is finally here. Yes, the series directed by the famous Sung-ho Park, the director behind Jujutsu Kaisen and God of High School, has produced a series written by Shigeru Murakoshi, who of course worked on Zombieland Saga, Dark Gathering, and God of High School as well. A series that had quite a bit of hype behind it, I think, because it seems like it is very much so geared towards the general public, being on Adult Swim, and yes, having a plot line that kind of just feeds into that desire that the Western culture kind of has, the standard revenge plot. But is there anything else behind this series that can really grab your attention, despite its kind of focus towards the action revenge story? Well, after watching 3 episodes of the series, I'm here to give my first impressions on it, so let's just jump right into it. Putting my joke introduction aside, yes, Ninja Kamui opens up in a world of ninjas. We essentially have, in the past, there was ninjas in Japan, and they had this code that they kind of kept to Japan. They protected Japan from the shadows and all that kind of stuff. Well, at some point, essentially, the world changed, and at some point, they started giving their knowledge and started working with outside countries. Now, it seems like not everybody was okay with this. This new world of ninjas kind of going more global. They decided to defect, and in that defecting, yes, this organization wanted them all dead. If you left the organization, they will hunt you down. And we follow one such individual. It doesn't seem very clear at the very beginning, but yes, this Joe Logan, he's a guy that's living in America with his wife and his child, and they're just kind of living their daily life. Well, at the same time, on the news, every now and then, they are hearing these stories about people being pretty much assassinated. And they have this little fear that, yes, this organization that they used to work for is going to hunt them down and kill them. Well, their fears come true when one night a band of ninjas show up and kill not only his wife, but his child as well, and seemingly kill him. Well, Joe doesn't end up dead. He actually wakes up in a morgue. They already pronounced him dead. They thought that he was dead at that point. They end up taking him back into the hospital going, holy crap, your heart was stopped and everything. We thought you were dead. They kind of give an indication later on that he used some sort of secret ninja art to resurrect himself, bring himself back to life. Well, it's at this point that, yes, now being back alive and confirming that his family is dead, he decides to take his revenge on the entire organization, hunt down every single one of them. But it's not going to be easy, because it seems like this organization is backed by a very powerful organization. The ASA organization, which, as I joked earlier, is pretty much Facebook. It's like Facebook, Tesla, and all these big corporations all into one company that is essentially becoming very global. If you have software, if you have hardware, if you have power grids, everything is kind of being fueled by this one organization. And Joe finds this out because he very quickly joins up with Mike Morris, who is a police officer investigator that is trying to find out what happened to his family, and additionally, how that connects to all the other assassinations that are happening, and yes, the bigger picture, which is this global organization and the ninjas. But yes, Mike's bosses aren't really happy about this because, as you would expect with a massive global organization that has a lot of money, they're pulling the strings behind the justice system itself. So despite the fact that he's soon to retire, they want him to get off the case and stop sticking his nose where it doesn't belong. So my thoughts on Ninja Kamui. This series so far has started off pretty solid. Now, I will argue that this is a very standard Hollywood Western plotline. The idea of the main character who has a family, the family gets killed, and then he just goes on a revenge plot. It's very basic in that regard. Although there is things sprinkled here and there that is sort of opening up the doors to having a deeper plotline. And I think that potential is probably in the ninja clans themselves. What is the story behind them eventually joining this organization? And yes, the idea of quitting the organization. I think the bigger question mark that I have is what caused Joe to leave this organization, or Higan. What caused Higan to leave this organization? They're sort of spelling it out as if he was one of the people they didn't like, that they were becoming global, that they were leaving Japan and essentially going after the money. This big company, ASA, obviously has a lot of money behind it, and they probably join them so that they can get money and technology. And was that the reason that Higan left? And after that point, he just wanted to be hidden away, but then the organization found him? That's all the bigger question mark. But again, I'm not going to set my expectations high because it seems like a standard plotline. It can surprise me in the end. It could do something interesting, but at face value, it just seems like a standard, the honor system turning into greed and going after this organization that is, taking over the world. I think one thing they're doing really well so far is I do like Higan, Mike, and Emma as characters. They have a good chemistry between them. You have Mike is the guy that's soon to retire, and he's just being told to keep his head down, but he's so justice-driven that he's going to go against his bosses just to essentially find the crooks. He puts justice over his own future. He's like, just retire and go fishing. Well, I don't like fishing anyway, so I'm going to take down these bad guys, kind of that whole thing. I'm going to put my life at risk in order to take this down. Emma is Mike's partner, and she's just a geek. She likes to kind of tinker with things, get into technologies, and at the same time kind of support them with that knowledge. And then you have Higan, who, yes, understandably, is really mad, and additionally, is a lethal ninja. And I think them three together, so far, the writing in their interaction with each other is really solid. It's kind of the side of it that I am enjoying. But putting that all aside, obviously the bigger draw to this series is kind of its more broader appeal in the idea that it is just a action flick. The idea of just watching these characters get into a fight and crazy stuff ensues, which I'm very, very mixed on. I think overall, I enjoy the action scenes. This show so far has a lot of kind of dynamic to the actual fights themselves. There's a lot of equipment they're using, different techniques, different skills. Each person that Higan is fighting fights in their own way. Even Higan himself has a broad assortment of different strategies and ways that he fights. A lot of it kind of goes into this whole thing where he creates this almost mist around himself, at which point he kind of creates some sort of weapon from it. But yeah, you have some enemies that employ different type of technology, again, kind of playing into their connection to ASA, this company that creates a lot of technologies that, yes, include a lot of different types of weapons. My problem in the action scenes so far is that you have points here and there where it does things that me personally I don't find appealing. One example is where you have the rotating perspective, where the camera itself, the background itself, is rotating around the characters as they're jumping and flipping and slicing at each other. And in a lot of cases, my brain tries to connect perspective and distance. And when you have the characters flipping around as the camera is spinning faster than they are, it's like, where are we at in the scene right here? How much space do they have in this area? It starts to kind of bug me a little bit. But that's going to be something that I think most people are not going to care about. I think the thing that a lot of people are pointing out, and I sort of agree, is that this show has sort of that problem with that almost ghosting, where characters are moving, but they almost leave an after image of themselves. And I think that's often done in order to avoid them dimming the screen itself. For those who don't know, a lot of anime, when it airs in Japan, they have to dim the action scenes because they don't want to cause seizures. And I think that's sometimes a method they use in order to avoid doing that. But what you're kind of left with is that kind of blurring effect that the characters have, which can be a little bit irritating. But still, like I said, putting those two complaints aside, the rest of it's great. I like a lot of the action scenes, and I think the thing I like most about it is that there's so many different steps to it. I think Sung-ho Park is just very clever when it comes to kind of stuff. I had the same feeling with God of High School. The fights themselves have so many different kind of levels to them. It's not simply characters just slashing at each other nonstop. There's a lot of steps to it. Like in episode 3, they have this whole segment where they're being attacked in this car. It goes into the streets, and then it goes up the building, and then they're fighting on the top of the building. There's like steps to it, which does keep it fresh and adds a lot of dynamic to the actual fight itself. Additionally, I like the style of the show itself. It looks really good. The character designs are fantastic. There's just so many different locations and characters themselves that gives a lot of variety to it. I do have to give it credit in the idea that Higan himself is very brutal. I think that's one thing that I do like a lot with the combat sequences itself. You do feel how brutal Higan is. You feel that kind of rage that he has when he's in these fights. Like the very first fight that they have in the hallways of the hospital itself, you kind of get that feeling that he's mad. Like, it's not really holding anything back. When it comes to him taking down his target, he literally just kind of rams it in there, just keeps stabbing. You see that frustration, that anger that he has with the loss of his family. And I think there is a lot of stories about revenge where it seems like they quickly forget about what initially kind of drove them, and it kind of just gets left behind because the writer themselves, I think, just use it as a plot point to just kind of push him in that direction. Oh, well, he starts with a family. You know the family's going to die because they need a revenge story. They need a reason for him to take out literally hundreds of people. And I think they do well in showing in the fights, in the executions, that he is angry, that this thing is driving him. I had this one thing. Additionally, the music. I love the music so far. Now, I'm not a big fan of rap, and it's got kind of that energetic electronic rap they're kind of using throughout the series, but still what I tell people endlessly is that there's nothing that can take a fight scene to the next level than having vocals. And every single one of these fights, when it gets to going, you get that energy going, the music's going, and then you get the vocals in there, it just adds so much to it. That's why I love Sawano Hiroyuki so much, is whenever his music's in a show, you get the vocals. And the vocals always take it to the next level. So hats off for them. The music itself is just fantastic. They're doing a really good job of kind of putting the energy in the scenes themselves. So like the scene itself, the fight itself, almost plays into the music. So each of the different points of the song itself ramps up. The action will ramp up. So yeah, massive plus for that. All that said, in the end, I am enjoying the show. Yes, a lot of it has to do with the fact that Higan is voiced by Kendra Suda, which, yes, I love Kendra Suda. I think his voice is fantastic. He really does sell the character. But at the same time, there is a side of me that kind of is a little bit disappointed that it is a very typical corrupt company and revenge plot. I do hope that in the end there's something more to the story than just that. But I will admit that for most people, that's enough. As long as the action itself has purpose, he's got his driving force, and that's all we really need. It's going to be enough for most people. Just a show to turn on every week and see who he gets his revenge on. But anyhow, that's my thoughts on Ninja Kamui so far. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, make sure that like button down below. Comment, let me know what's all of this series so far if you're going to be checking it out. Additionally, if you're new to the channel, make sure that subscribe button to get my content. I do news, reviews, first impressions, top list. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, if you want to support the channel more, I have Patreon link, tips, links, super links, membership button down below. Greatly appreciate what it does. And y'all take care.